Well, I think the biggest challenge, and we saw this yesterday in the panel, and I talked about it today in the talk, was that most leadership is not agile, and they think that agile is something that teams do down at a low level, and that leadership can be waterfall up in the front office, and they can get all their waterfall reports and do all their waterfall orders, and they'll have some kind of scaling framework to insulate them from the agility. And of course, this blocks agility. They just hit a ceiling, and they're very frustrated. So we see that both in the United States and in the Scrum Day, when we ask people, about two-thirds of the people are in this situation where they do not have agile leadership. Well, agile leadership means two things. One is leadership, and second, agile. and that means that it's quite a radical change in behavior from traditional hierarchical command and control style. Yeah.
So what would you recommend? Someone who is a leader in the company, what should he or she do then? Yeah.
In the areas where the management has a pretty good understanding of what's going on, they've really done their own research, they've done their own training, they've sent people around the world looking at other agile companies, and then they've come back and figured out, okay, for us to be agile, I mean, we see this in BMW, the leadership has a good understanding of what's needed. Then they know they not only need to deliver at the end of the sprint, but they need to implement continuous integration. They need to be deploying multiple times during a sprint live. In BMW's case, they need to connect up all the cars, and they need to be doing a new release, just like Tesla, every 2 or 3 weeks, okay? That understanding exists at BMW, but we work with a lot of automobile manufacturers who want to be agile, but they don't get that yet. Yeah. Well, sometimes, particularly Scrum Masters, are very creative on getting some knowledge into the leadership's hands. I mean, it can be as simple as giving them the book, Scrum, the Art of Doing Twice the Work to Half the Time. That is a book for managers. And we've had CEOs call us up and say, hey, we need this. So it speaks to leaders. Then the next thing, I've seen that also happen, is the Scrum Masters have convinced management that they should do a workshop to really understand what agility is and how it works. And the best companies and agile coaches actually get the management into the certified Scrum Master classes and the certified product owner classes that we do, and the Scrum at Scale. So they get some real basic education.
Yeah, I can very much agree on that. I think this is something which would really help. Maybe even get them to Scrum Day.
Yeah, Scrum Day is a good educational process. Well, a 2-day class is definitely not sufficient for becoming a great Scrum Master. It's an introduction. When we work even with coaches and trainers, they have to go through our Scrum Master class 2 days, our Product Owner class for 2 days, our Scrum at Scale class 2 days. Then they have to go out on an engagement and pair with us coaching for weeks before we even feel like they're suitable for bringing in on an engagement. And so that would be kind of the minimum for a good Scrum Master to get trained properly. You know, the book the Scrum, the Art of Doing Twice the Work in Half the Time, is designed not only for management, but it talks about the way we teach Scrum today at Scrum Inc., which is a pattern-based approach to implementing Scrum, which if people follow, even a brand new Scrum Master can get a team off and running and accelerating. And so they need to understand not the rules of Scrum. Like, you can teach somebody the rules of soccer, but you put them on the playing field, they may or may not play well, right? So they need to know, they need to get out there and learn how to pass the ball and how to collaborate in the teamwork. the rules are the easy part. The hard part is to actually the collaborating on the field. And there are patterns that we've seen, and we have a new patterns book coming out soon with all the patterns that the patterns team has worked on for years. This is an international group evolving out of the Scrum patterns movement. And those are a very good resource for teaching people how to play the game. And there's not too many books out there. I mean, there's lots of books on Scrum, but not very many books that tell you how to play the game and win. That's the key. Well, actually, these values were in the first Scrum book that Ken and Mike Beal wrote, and there was a chapter on that, and they were based on Ken's experience working with me at Patient Keeper, where I was CTO. And one of the things he noticed about Patient Keeper is we created an environment where there was real focus, there was real commitment, respect for people, allowed people to open up, have courage. And so he wrote about that in the first Scrum book, saying you need to have that environment to have Scrum work very well. So the big problem here, and particularly in Germany, I think, and I think it's because in Germany, companies seem to want to go all at once, you know? They want to go together. Whereas in America, little teams starting up and doing something different, that's typical for Americans. They don't worry about it. But in Germany, it seems like, okay, if a team is going to start up Scrum, then we need management approval. We really sort of need all teams doing it. And what they expressed yesterday is that generates a lot of fear in the people. Well, if people have fear, then the Scrum values can't appear. Because the Scrum value is about openness, respect, courage, you know, which implies a willingness to change. And so I think that this is a big challenge for leadership, how to dispel the fear. And the way, I think the key to that is to go back. Scrum arises out of Lean. What Taiichi Ohno taught at Toyota, what did he tell the managers to do? He taught them to go to the Gemba. Go to where the team is working. Stand there and watch them. Encourage them. Learn how they're working. Learn what they need. Help them. And the problem is, as long as the management sits in the corner office and doesn't go to the Gemba, the people will not know what to do. They'll be fearful. They'll be afraid to change. Well, there are some very creative leaders. One person running an organization, building a product, was telling me how he got all 60 of his developers in a room, and in one morning they figured out how to self-organize all the team, and off they went. And he facilitated, encouraged that, and supported that. Okay, so that's good. And I also I was impressed by one of the big energy companies has a CIO that appears very innovative. And we talked, and you know, knowledge, innovation, creativity, willing to change, allowing the people to self-organize, you know, getting the people to help move the company forward. Those are all fundamental to the Scrum values way of working. And you have people doing that, but only about a third, as we saw yesterday when we asked the whole group. Only about a third of the people have leadership like that. So it's the other 2/3 that we need a solution for. Well, I think it's getting bigger and bigger. But it was interesting. One of my American colleagues, Dan Messick, was here, and he was really quite impressed at. He told you it was one of the best conferences he's ever been to, because people are open, they're friendly, they're talking, they're sharing in a way that he says he doesn't often see at Agile conferences. So I think that's a credit to you and your team that you've set up that environment. You've set up the the Scrum values have been created, and that allows everything to work much better. You know, when Harvard Business Review published the paper Embracing Agile, they pulled the entire organization together, and they asked them, okay, in Embracing Agile, it lists about 7 things that managers can do to block agility. And they asked the people, are we doing that? And they took feedback from the people. Then they walked down to where the people were working and looked at their Scrum boards and asked them how this worked and understood what was going on. And then so now they have a much better connection to the people. They know what they're doing, and they need to keep doing that. Go to the Gemba, talk to the people, watch what they're doing, find out what they need. This is leadership.